Hello, hello. My name is Dina Moore, and welcome to Cult to Freedom. Today's topic is how Jehovah's Witnesses are actually a narcissistic organization. I recently did an interview with Ramiro, and he pointed out the link between not just narcissistic personal relationships, but how the religion itself was narcissistic. And he suggested this would be a good topic. So I started doing the research. And as I was doing this outline, my head blew up. I am going to not only describe to you why and how the organization itself is narcissistic, but I'm also going to go into how you have been groomed to accept narcissism as normal. And then please watch all the way to the end because I will be talking about how to break this cycle, how to break this pattern. I'm going to try to put all of this into one video. I might have to break it up. As all of you know, I don't really know how to edit yet. So this might end up being part one, part two. But let's dive right in to why Jehovah's Witness organization is a narcissistic system from the core. So, one of the first clues that we can get is that narcissists think they are God. They have a grandioseness to them. And so, obviously, this is very, very clear. The organization views themselves as God's soul channel, God's spokesperson, right? They have the exclusive access to information that the other 8 billion people in the world don't have, as they see themselves as the only true religion, the only ones with God's approval. They have this grandiose, godlike image to them. And I think this became really, really obvious when they started the JW broadcasting. I was still I was at the end of my career with Jehovah's Witnesses when they started that. And you know what? That was kind of a mistake because it allowed all of us to start seeing the governing body as they truly were. I lived near Bethel when I was growing up, so I did get to meet a lot of the governing body in person. And I had always thought when I met them that there was such a feeling of superiority. And when they started the JW broadcasting, I think that became very, very clear in their presentation how superior and godlike they were. If you look at their facial features and their expressions, I'm going to mock them here for a second. So they're this very condescending, very, very superior in their grandiose self image, which is one of the key features of a narcissist. Number two, a narcissist lacks empathy. A narcissist lacks the ability to understand or comprehend or have sympathy and empathy for the feelings of other people. And Jehovah's Witnesses, as an organization, are completely devoid of empathy. Why do I say this? How about disfellowshipping and shunning? The organization as a whole, even on the more individual levels, even bodies of elders, judicial committees, they have zero empathy for the impact that shunning is going to have on an individual. The suicides that have resulted from the shunning policies, they are completely hollow when it comes to having any empathy for that pain and suffering, not just for the people that have been shunned, but for all of the family members, the mothers, the fathers, the brothers and sisters, the aunts and the uncles and the grandparents that are forced to shut down their feelings in order to excommunicate their children, nieces, nephews, etc. There is zero compassion or empathy for the trauma that this is going to cause. None whatsoever. How about this? How about all of the victims of abuse? We're recently, it's coming to light of all of the children who have been victims in this organization. And as a whole, Jehovah's Witnesses have zero empathy for these victims of abuse. In fact, quite the opposite. They're more concerned with what their reputation is and how this is going to reflect on Jehovah's name rather than having any sort of compassion or empathy. They're completely devoid of that. Not just in the case of sexual abuse, but how about even domestic abuse, domestic violence? They have zero concern for women or men that are in relationships that are abusive. They only care about keep going to meetings, keep going to meetings. They're heartless, truly, truly, truly heartless, even blaming the victims instead of taking any sort of responsibility or having any sort of feelings for this. Again, I think the JW broadcasting really started showing this to me as some of these brothers, mostly members of the governing body and the other higher ups, who will sit there and talk about these loving arrangements, which are completely, completely void of any sort of actual feeling, which is one of the major, major signs of a narcissist. In this case, we're talking about a completely narcissistic religion and organization. So there's, zero concern for shunning and the suicides, zero concerns for victims of abuse. Okay, how about this one? Zero understanding, concern, empathy for anyone that's suffering from depression. If you're suffering from depression, there is no compassion there. You just need to study more. You need to pray harder. It's your fault. How about when you lose somebody in death? The funerals of Jehovah's Witnesses, those funeral talks, they're given an outline. And the outline has, 5 seconds of this is the person, but not even this is the person. This is what the person did for the organization. This is what the person did for Jehovah. And the rest of that outline is a recruitment speech. Why you need to continue being faithful to the religion so that you can see them in the resurrection. There is zero empathy for the loss that human beings go through in this religion. The same can be said for divorce. And I already related that to other when you have to shun somebody. The lack of empathy is this as I started compiling this part of the outline, it just as I put it all together, I was like, wow, how did we not see that? Because we were in not just a cult, we were in an abusive, narcissistic religion. Clue number 3 that this is a narcissistic religion is exploitation. They are vampires. They suck the energy out of their members. We see this through the preaching work, right? All the time and effort that people put into there, they just suck it up. The construction projects that people donate all of their time to. And you know what? This isn't a request. This is a demand. This is a requirement to be part of this organization that you give your time, your energy, your money in the form of donations with zero accountability. There is zero accountability for how those funds are spent. It is just give, 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 and they take, which is what a narcissistic relationship does. On top of this, you know what? Here's another way that they exploit us. How many of the personal testimonies have we heard either in conventions or even on the JW website, as well as in the publications? Here's this faithful brother that sacrificed so much, blah, blah, blah. And they use it for promotional purposes. They take a person's personal trauma, suffering, pain, and they use it as a platform to elevate themselves. Again, going back to that grandioseness that they suffer from, they take suffering, they take personal loss, and they convert it into PR. It has nothing to do with you. I've seen a few times, Jehovah's Witnesses are horrible about helping with natural disasters or catastrophes or anything like that. But recently I did see, I think there was an earthquake somewhere, and they were talking about how a missionary couple lost their lives. And look what we did. Look what we did. Exploiting what happened to that couple who had donated their lives to the religion, and they used it as a freaking promotional piece on their website. That is disgusting to me. And I didn't see it when I was in. And I really, really, really hope that if you're on the edge, this will help you start to see the organization in the sadistic light that it deserves to be seen in. I rarely do bashing videos. This is my first, as a matter of fact. But I think it's really important that we start to realize that this isn't just the wrong religion. This is toxic. And part of the reason why it's so hard for people to wake up is because they're in an abusive relationship. All right, so we've got grandiose self-image, lack of empathy, exploitation. Number 4, this is how we know that this is a narcissistic religion, is they have a complete inability to accept criticism. To accept criticism or any sort of responsibility or any sort of accountability. Anytime they are criticized, you are spiritually weak. You are an apostate. This has nothing to do with them. I don't care what facts you give them, what facts are presented. The person presenting is immediately attacked because they cannot accept responsibility. Either it's you because you're an apostate, or it's the devil. Anything that you read in the news, they have the complete inability to stand up and say, I was wrong. We made a mistake. They deflect all criticism as either coming from an apostate or as a direct attack from Satan himself, which kind of also goes back to the grandiose thing, because they're assuming that they are so important that any attack has to be, against them by the highest powers that be. This is a huge, huge red flag. This is exactly what narcissists do. A narcissist cannot accept any sort of criticism. They immediately will deflect it. And that is exactly what they do. Anytime they have made any sort of mistake, like, for example, recently altering some of the policies for disfellowshipping, instead of saying, hey, you know what, maybe we were a little too harsh, or maybe we got that wrong. No, 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 no. This is, again, grandioseness. This is new light and a loving arrangement, instead of just flat out admitting that they made a mistake. The other thing that's also related this too is isolating members from information. This is also how they protect themselves from criticism, is by literally cutting us off from the ability to even recognize that they've made some mistakes. This video might end up being too long because I'm still on the organizational part. I haven't even got into the grooming of us part. Okay, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, entitlement. They believe that they deserve unconditional loyalty, love, and devotion. They have equated themselves with God, and there is no okayness for anything less than 100% complete devotion. No questions asked. Members are expected and even demanded to sacrifice their education, their careers, their relationships. How about our vacations? Even when you went on vacation, you were expected to go to the meetings while you were on vacation. Or, you know what? How about some of those vacations that we did where we did unassigned territory and that was our vacation? This demanding is a sign of complete narcissism. And like I said, when I was writing out this outline, I kind of freaking blew myself away because I didn't realize the extent to how much the religion itself is the very definition of a narcissist. All right, how about this one? They rewrite history. They rewrite history. Narcissists alter the facts when it suits their purposes. And that is exactly what Jehovah's Witnesses have a history of doing. They will change their predictions, they will change doctrine, and conveniently delete the proof that anything contrary even existed. The JW library doesn't even contain older literature. Members are discouraged from looking at older literature. Why? Oh, because we have new light? No, because they have conveniently altered and deleted facts to fit the current narrative. They have minimized and denied harmful policies. They have gone back and forth with the blood doctrine. They have altered and changed other policies and whitewashed it completely and 100%. They have sanitized history. And one of the number one excuses they use for this, because I know, like, for example, Jeffrey Jackson outright lied in the Australian Royal Commission, outright lied. And how do they defend that? They defend that as spiritual warfare, as they justify their grandioseness and their authority as they whitewash everything. This is mind blowing to me. I had never looked at it completely in this light. And I think I'm already going to have to cut this into 3 parts. Okay, so we're going to call this part Why Jehovah's Witnesses Are Completely 100% Narcissists. And I'm going to ask you really quickly, please like, share, and subscribe. I feel like maybe this might be one of the most important topics that I've covered. I know I say that a lot, but I think maybe really this one really is. And also, please feel free to share this video with any other JW groups that you might know so that we can help people get out of this toxic relationship. Please give me a like, give me a comment. I really want to hear your comments on this topic. Maybe if there's something that I missed as I'm describing how narcissistic the religion is itself. And please look out for part 2. I'm going to actually record it right now. So part 2 is going to cover how they are grooming millions of people to accept narcissistic abuse as normal. Okay? It's not just a cult and it's not just hard to get out of because it's brainwashing. You have been groomed to accept narcissistic abuse. And the next video, I'm going to go over at least 9 different ways that you have been groomed. So stay tuned. I love you guys, and I will talk to you in a few minutes.